You're watching Amador County's local television network, TSPN.
Hi, for you that have not met me, my name's Tom Berryhill, and I actually, Ted Gaines was your senator here for the last few years. With redistricting, you became an orphan county, and we got together on a bipartisan measure and decided that this is will be the district, the 8th Senate district in 14, and so they allowed me to represent Amador, Calaveras, Mono, and Inyo in the interim. And so I've also in the last couple years become the finance chair for our Senate Republicans, and I'll tell you, that sounded like a good idea at the time. But it's a big responsibility. That's why a lot of times, and both with Frank, me, and Tom, these districts are really big, and we would like to be here more often. We get here as much as we can. You'll see much more of me in the next year for sure. But I want to emphasize a couple things that have happened over the last year, and the opportunities that we've got. You know, we've got. The bad news is, over the last 2 years, we've lost a supermajority in both houses. And that's not good, because there's a lot of stuff that can happen in budget negotiations that we can protect these rural counties. What's happened, they've picked winners and losers up in Sacramento, and the rural counties have not been the winners. And so we're finding ourselves at the short end of the stick. They've taken away RDAs from us, they've taken away enterprise zones from us, they've taken away all of our tools that might bring manufacturing or processing business up here to the mother lode. I carried a CEQA bill that would streamline CEQA and not allow frivolous lawsuits. Now, that was this last year. Unfortunately, the committee that it went through was stacked with Democrats, and I was going up against President Pro Tem Steinberg in his special bill that he was waiving CEQA requirements for the Sacramento Kings. Now, over the last 5 years, 6 years that I've been in the legislature, we have passed special legislation for every big coliseum from San Diego to San Francisco to Sacramento. And you know, when it's convenient for a city, especially one that a Democrat represents, they waive everything. But when you or I try to build a business or start a business, they make us jump through all kinds of hoops. And if there's a union out there, God forbid, that wants to hold you, extort you, they can. Or if you have a competitor that doesn't want competition across the street, they can hold you up for a number of years to the point that you can't afford even to start a business. And it has hurt us. Up here through the mother lode, we were doing some homework because as we were trying to cut a deal for the mother lode to get some opportunity in a enterprise zone like region. And it was interesting as we did our research, because up here all through the mother lode counties, you're about 8.5% unemployment. Well, when that number came up, it struck me funny. I go, that just can't be. I came up here to Amador a couple weeks later to see the food lines, and it was stunning, the poverty that is up here. And what's happened, because there's no jobs, all the kids, they're moving away because there's no jobs. So I have talked with the governor's staff. We are working as we speak to try to come up with a formula that is a regional formula that will maybe give us some opportunity here in the next year or so to let people prosper here up in the hills and be able to keep their families here, which would be awfully nice. I do want to make a quick comment. I want to let these guys talk. But this Prop 13, now that they've got their 2/3 in both houses, they are very empowered. And when they talk, you would think that 13 would be untouchable. It's not. And it's only because of the Democrat leaders, Steinberg, Perez, and mostly, surprisingly enough, Governor Brown, just won't let them even bring it up, or that would have been up this last year. And that should concern everybody. And even though we have lost a supermajority in the last couple of years, we did pick up a seat in Fresno just a few months ago, Andy Vidak, in a 22-point Democrat seat. So maybe this pendulum finally is starting to swing. And it swung. Number one, Dana mentioned Jim Brulte is the new head of this party. He did a lot to help us come together as a grassroots organization and bring the central committees together. To duplicate this victory that we had just this last year and to pick up 2 more seats, which on the natural we should do, we all need to stay engaged, we need to walk, we need to, and we certainly need to vote. So where a lot of people are naysayers and that the end of the world is right here, I'm not one of them. I see opportunity coming back. I see us picking seats up. I see us at 14 seats and 14. And with a good presidential candidate, I see absolute unlimited possibilities as we move into the next 5 years. So when everybody else sits there and says that everything's so bad, don't believe all that, because our best days are just ahead of us. So I look forward in the next few months to seeing you all a little bit more, getting to know you a little bit more, and I really enjoy representing Amador County. My dad, back in the mid-70s, represented from Mono County clear to Modoc. And so for me, this is like old home week, coming back up here and being able to campaign and be able to get to know everybody up here. So I'm really appreciating being up here in God's country. I look forward to working with you. Thanks. Beautiful weather. Hey, and just as a pitch for Arnie here, I will tell you, he requested a meeting from me, which I met with him down at the convention here in Anaheim. And he goes, you know, Tom, he goes, we just need some help up here in Amador. And I said, well, Arnie, I said, that's kind of what we're here for. And it's a tribute that both the Congressman and Assembly Member Bigelow are here today, and it's because of his hard work. So thank you, Arnie, for all the hard work you do.
Thank you.
In Washington. First of all, let me start off by saying thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to represent you at the state capitol. It's been an absolute pleasure to do that during this first session. I tell you what, starting off this session was really interesting. You come in, you get sworn in, and they throw this thing they call a fire hose at you. They got so much information, some gobbledygook paperwork that you got to fill out, and next thing you know, you're in session, and you're working, and you're working, and you're working, and it doesn't seem like it's ever going to stop, because there are so many bills that come before us. Senator Berryhill hit the nail square on the head. This session, we saw so many bills that came before us that really didn't represent much of what we stood for. But we had some good highlights, and we were pleased to be a part of that. But much of that won't be seen by the Republican base because it's buried in everyday news. It's buried because you can't, for whatever reason, you're not going to get to see it. Now, for me, a showcase was a moment when I got my first bill. And I think both the legislators can remember to that day when you got your first bill signed, just how excited and how pleased you were. Well, I was pleased on that day when the governor signed my first bill, AB 924, but I was more discouraged because I had other bills that died, good, solid bills that would help the people. Well, just let me say that my commitment to you is the same as the day I came here last year asking for your support. I'll do my best. I'll stand up for what I believe is right and what I believe you want represented. And for me to be the best I can be, I need some help from you in several ways. First, if you can't reach me, get a hold of Dana. Get a hold of Kurt Kimmelshoe or Katie Massengale or Sarah Petrowski in my office in Sacramento. Reach to those people because I need to hear from you. When I'm communicating through the newsletter or through the web or even on Facebook or Twitter, reach back. Let me know what you need. That's one of the ways that I can help you by knowing what you need represented. Another thing that I need from you, I want you to take a look right now around the tables. Folks, we need to fill the parking lot. If we're going to take back this state, what do we need to do? We need to reach out to our neighbors, to our fellow Republicans, and those that are not registered. We need to reach out to them and grab them. We need to grab, like we have some youth here tonight, we need to get those young folks involved once again to help take back this state and this country. Now we also have to do another thing. We have to find good, strong candidates that are going to be willing to participate. People who are knowledgeable, experienced, articulate, well-versed in a host of arenas in life. I want to tell you, one of the things that I've noticed in the state capitol, we have a number of legislators who are coming in who have absolutely no formal training, no basic training, no training whatsoever about how government works. But they're getting elected, and they're coming in with these ideas, and these ideas don't set well. If you want to continue losing your rights, what we need to do, and it's just my humble request of you, and if you believe it's a good one, find individuals locally, and let's start training them. Let's get them started in the fire district. Let's get them started in the water districts. Let's get them started at the ground floor. Start them in the city council, or maybe even the board of supervisors, where I came from. That's a good place, let me tell you. You have a great city council.
You're watching Amador County's local television network, TSPN.
You have, in fact, I want to give a shout out to the city council. You know, Dana didn't, I think, really mention it or showcase it enough. The city council makes it possible for Tom and I to share an office right there in downtown. Make use of it, because they've been so kind as to share that with us. And it's not easy. It is not easy with the limited budgets that we have. One of the things that Tom and I recognized, in order to make our districts, which are vast, to make them successful, we need people, boots on the ground, to reach out and meet the needs of the people. We couldn't do that within our budget if we just singularly did our own staff member individually. So we did cost share. By the way, the state of California said nobody's ever done that. They didn't know how to do it and didn't want to do it. And I said, why not? Why not? Well, we got it done. Well, I want to come back and tell you, or ask of you, if you can reach out to those folks at the city council and the board of supervisors, get people to go for those races, please do it. Get them some of that training. And when those folks, if they decide to go on, let's help them. If they decide to time out and go off and do other things in life, so be it. But let's find someone to backfill. Now I want to tell you, we have found an opportunity in 2 of the races in the state assembly, because we're short. If we can get 2 more seats and elect them, we'll break the supermajority that both houses have. We have found 2 candidates down south, and we believe those are 2 winnable races, and we're going to go and put a lot of effort into it. So if a phone call comes to Arnie and asks him to reach out to all of you to make phone calls, to do whatever you can do to help those folks, please do that. Eagerly do that, because that's what it's going to take. Because they're going to be working twice as hard with twice as much on the other side to make sure that we don't take back those seats. And in fact, they're going to work twice as hard to take some of the others away. Arnie's absolutely correct. If you look at the logistics, even of this district, a Democrat could win. Not easily, but they could win. So it's up to us to fight the fight, stand the ground, and make sure that our voices are heard, and what we believe in is the righteous position. So with that said, I'm going to hand the mic over to our congressman and let him share what his efforts have been this year. And I just want to close by saying thank you so much for giving me, a simple cowboy who believes in the values of a Republican Party, the chance to stand up on the state assembly floor where the rugs are green and they remind you of everything that is so sacred that made this state the greatest state that there is. And I want to take that great state and make it a polished state once again and put it back on top. So thank you very much.
So I want to say just briefly introducing our congressman, a couple of words of introduction, because he's new here and a lot of people don't know Tom McClintock. We were fortunate. We've had some very savvy, experienced people. Dan Lundgren was a good friend of our county, and then the redistricting came, and everything got juggled, and Dan ended up running for a district where he lost, and the Congressman McClintock has kind of moved his work scene further to the south. He used to represent all the way up through Nevada County, or still has Nevada, but further north. But in any case, we've inherited a very experienced congressman. People in the Republican Party that worked with Tom McClintock 25 years ago. He's been around a long time. He's very experienced, very savvy, and he's interested, as is demonstrated by his showing up here today. So this is your opportunity to hear from your congressman, and this is your opportunity to ask your congressman some questions. I know that he's receptive toward working with us, and I just want to express my pleasure in your coming today, Congressman. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I cannot begin to thank each and every one of you for the work that you're doing on behalf of our party and our cause. And it's really the cause that brings us all here. I think I speak for all of us when I say I'm a lifelong Republican, but my loyalty is not to the Republican Party. My loyalty is to the principles of the American founding. My loyalty to the Republican Party extends only so far as it is loyal to those principles. And at this moment, the Republican Party is the only organized effort in conjunction with all of its allies in the Tea Party and other groups. But we're the only formal party that stands between the American founding principles and an entirely alien and antithetical ideology that we have seen now in Washington, D.C. We have just been through one hell of a fight over Obamacare and the fiscal direction of this nation, and it has been supremely frustrating in many ways. We're losing much of the structure of the American Constitution. If you think about it, the House of Representatives was entrusted by the American founders with the purse strings. Only the House of Representatives may propose spending. Once an appropriation has been made by the House, the Senate's choice is to either agree with that and pass it on to the President or propose amendments back. That's the origination clause. And think of what's happened in this debate. 4 weeks ago now, about 2 weeks before the deadline for a fiscal bill to pass, Republicans sent an appropriations bill to the Senate that funded the entire government except for one single program, Obamacare. That was immediately rejected by the Senate. But then a malfunction occurs. The Senate refuses to negotiate the differences between the House and the Senate. So we sent a second bill, and we said, okay, let's fund the entire government. We'll even fund Obamacare. Let's just delay its implementation for a year. That was summarily rejected, and they refused to negotiate. Then, with the clock running out, the House sent a third measure to the Senate. We'll fund the entire government, fund Obamacare, we'll even fund your malfunctioning exchanges, but we ask that we at least delay the individual mandate for a year so people won't be forced to buy insurance plans that they don't want, that they can't afford, and with these malfunctioning exchanges they can't even get. That was also summarily rejected. Now think about what that means to the structure of government. We have a bicameral legislative system. The two houses of Congress were specifically engineered to have a different perspective on every issue, even when they're under the control of the same party. They're designed to disagree, and yet they have to agree on the same wording to send to the President to get anything done. So once the House and once the Senate have each exercised their own individual judgment, the only way that the thing can work is for them then to come together, isolate their differences, and resolve those differences through negotiation and compromise. That's what the House expected to happen, and it didn't. Instead, we saw a malfunction that caused the entire system to seize up, and that malfunction was the refusal of the President and the Senate to negotiate any of the differences between the House and the Senate, and the deadline passed, the system seized up, and we went through this shutdown that's been so devastating to some of the communities throughout this district. Think about the implications now. If the House has now lost the power of the purse strings, it means that on January the 15th, the President can simply set his spending demands, and the House, if it falls short of those demands, will simply see its measures disappear in the Senate, and as the deadline approaches, we will see the same dynamic that we just saw. The President saying, well, there the Republicans go again, they're shutting down the government. It means that the House will have the Hobson's choice from here on out of either agreeing to all of the President's demands or of facing another government shutdown. That is a very serious deterioration of the checks and balances that form our government, and that frightens me. And when I see everything else that's unfolding, that frightens me too. The loss of the Fourth Amendment through this NSA spying, the loss of the First Amendment through the persecution by the IRS of individuals who simply disagree with this administration, the loss of the Fifth Amendment and our property rights. We are at a constitutional crossroads here, and that's why I think that your efforts today are so absolutely critical. They're critical to the prosperity of our communities. You know, Tom Berryhill mentioned the terrible unemployment rates throughout this region. This region used to have well below the national unemployment rate, well below the state unemployment rate. Now it's running ahead of both. And why is that? Because of the resources that this region once prospered from have been shut down by the federal and state governments. Our forest resources, and because of that, we've seen a huge overgrowth of our forests that have now left them so choked and so desiccated that we see the 400 square miles of our forests now incinerated, and we can't even get the federal government to get out of the way so that we can at least salvage the fire-killed timber before it becomes commercially unsalvageable. And meanwhile, bark beetles are descending upon it, and we're going to see a massive explosion of those with the threat to the rest of our forest resources. You sent Brian Annetto to the Board of Supervisors. He has been one of the great statewide voices on that issue. Meanwhile, we're watching an exodus out of California. It's been 10 years now since the recall. 2.3 million more people have moved out of California than have moved in. They're fleeing the policies of big government that have taken the truly golden state of America and turned it into a national basket case. This state used to have well below the national unemployment rates. Now it's running well ahead of those unemployment rates because of the policies that have been implemented. You've sent Jim Rooney to the assessor's office. Think about the statewide implications of that. A county assessor who's willing to stand up and defend Proposition 13. That's hugely important. The voices that you've been electing locally have had a...
You're watching Amador County's local television network, TSPN.
Impact far beyond the confines of Amador County. And then your legislative team, Tom Berryhill and Frank Bigelow, tremendous voices under the most difficult circumstances. But I have to tell you this, I am very optimistic that the American people are slowly, inexorably getting a graduate level course in Obamonomics. And I believe at the end of that course, they are going to be a lot sadder and a lot wiser. And the political setbacks that we've had over the last few weeks, I think, are going to begin turning very, very rapidly as people are getting notices that their premiums are tripling under Obamacare. That they're losing the health, millions of Americans are losing the health plans that they were promised that they could keep. And they're seeing their hours cut back at work. Many are losing their jobs as businesses try to struggle to meet all of these vastly inflated costs that Obamacare has now brought to the system. And right before our eyes, we're watching the collapse of these exchanges on which they've had 3 years to develop. More than $600 million expended more than was used to develop Facebook. And I've got a feeling that about 6 months from now, as people are dealing with this, they're going to start looking back on these days and remembering that that's what that fight was all about 6 months ago or a year ago. The Republicans were trying to protect us from this. The great debates that are going on in Sacramento and Washington are merely a reflection of a much larger debate that's going on among the American people. That's the debate that matters. The debate that's going on over backyard fences and family dinner tables and coffee at Starbucks. These are the debates upon which the future of our country will depend. And everything that you can do every day in those debates is what ultimately will save or destroy our country. We've got to get our message out, and it's a powerful one. It's the message of the American founding, those uniquely American principles of individual liberty, constitutionally limited government, and personal responsibility that produced the most powerful, influential, prosperous, and happy republic in the history of the world. We are now into the 5th year of policies by a radical administration that have waged war directly upon those principles, and the result has been this. The 5 years of this administration have undeniably not been happy ones for the American people. If massive deficits, massive government spending, huge tax increases were the path to prosperity, if rolling out thousands and thousands of pages of new regulations, micromanaging every aspect of our lives was really the path to prosperity, wouldn't this be the new golden age of American wealth and happiness? It hasn't been. We know these policies don't work because we've watched them fail everywhere they've been tried. So we've got a very, very important story to tell to our neighbors in that great debate that's going on all across America. So the one plea that I would make to you is please don't let a day go by when you're not involved in that debate in one way or another. Letters to the editor, a call to a talk show. If you see an article online that your friends need to see, send it to them. If there's a place to leave comments after an article, leave those comments. The left has been doing that, and the left has been selling something that simply doesn't work. And I think that the American people, as these days progress, will realize increasingly that these policies do not work. And I think that we could be on the verge of a new renaissance of those quintessentially American fundamental principles that this party was founded upon. Freedom works. It is time that we put freedom back to work, and with it the American people. So tell our story, tell it proudly in every form that you can find. Trust that when the American people are paying close attention, they exercise pretty good judgment. I think they're starting to pay attention because they have to. They're watching these debates unfold. They're forming their opinions. And I believe that in the next year, we could see one of the great realignments. We saw one in 2010, if you think about that. There are people in our party right now that are trying to kick the Tea Party out. Now, by the way, these are the same people who describe themselves as big tent Republicans. And yet, they want to kick out the Tea Party. Now, think about what the Tea Party meant to Americans in 2010. We saw a net shift in a single election of 63 U.S. House seats, 6 U.S. Senate seats, 19 state legislatures, 6 governors, 700 legislative seats shifted from Democrat to Republican because the American people listened to that debate at the grassroots level, and that debate was being influenced by an awful lot of people who had never participated in politics before, some of whom never considered themselves to be Republicans before, but responded to that message of freedom that the Tea Party gave new life to. Well, that message is a quintessentially Republican message, and it's one that we can be confident, if we raise it in every form that we can find over the next year, will resonate as it has throughout the proud history of this country. So thank you all for everything that you're doing. Please keep doing it every day. And I believe that in the end, all will come right. The American founders didn't call them self-evident truths for nothing. It helps to point them out to people, but when you do, they get it. So please, don't give up. Quite the contrary. I've always found that it's always darkest before the dawn, and that is no truer in any of life's experiences than it is in politics. I think we're about to see a renaissance of these principles, and I thank you all for everything you're doing to produce that renaissance.
You're watching Amador County's local television network, TSPN.